Larry Barker is here again here in the News 13 digital studio to talk a little bit more about his latest investigation into New Mexico's bridges and that bridge safety, as you see kind of in the bottom of your screen there on that graphic. Larry, thanks for being here again.
You bet, Chris.
Well, Larry, I first wanted to start with how this story came together. How did you find all of these bridges? What was it that brought all this information together for you?
Well, I don't think people realize this, but the Department of Transportation has a file on every single bridge in the state of New Mexico.
Okay.
There are 4,000 bridges in the state, and the Department of Transportation is responsible for annually inspecting every bridge in the state. So
Okay.
they document everything about those bridges. A bridge inspection is actually very comprehensive.
Yeah.
They look at what's above the bridge, the railings, the substructure, the superstructure. So that's really where the information came from, are the files from the Department of Transportation, the inspection files for all these bridges in the state.
Okay, so you've got all of these inspection files. I know I've seen stories in the past where you got a list of documents stacked up on your desk. I imagine this was the same here. With all of that information, what did you want to set out and do with this story? What was the goal for you for this story? What story did you want to tell?
We wanted to really give our viewers a sense as to the state of bridges in New Mexico.
Okay.
I think every single person, if you drive a car in New Mexico, you drive over a bridge every single day. For many people, it's multiple bridges. So how safe are those bridges?
Right.
That was our goal. Now, with 4,000 bridges, of course, they are in different states of some of them are in very good condition, and some of them are in very poor condition.
Yeah.
So we focused on a group of bridges that are rated, number one, critical. Mm-hmm. That means these are bridges that are in very serious condition, mm-hmm. and they, for the most part, they have load limits.
Okay.
Bridges are partially closed if they're critical. There's not that many in the state, but there are quite a few of them. And then there are bridges that are rated poor.
Okay.
And there are several hundred of these throughout New Mexico. The bridges you're looking at right now,
Yeah.
This would be a bridge that's in poor condition. It means that it needs to be replaced. It is safe to drive over it, but there are likely, for a bridge with poor condition, it would have load limits. That means heavy vehicles would not be able to go over that bridge safely.
Okay.
In some cases, school buses would not be able to cross that bridge, or a fire engine, for example. And most of the poor bridges, not all of them, but most of them are in rural roads, many county roads, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And
But let me add here, Chris. This is really important.
yeah.
There's a bridge over Gibson, I-25. The I-25 bridge at Gibson is actually rated poor.
Yeah.
And it does need to be replaced. It is safe to drive over, but there are some serious issues with this bridge. So just because it's steel and concrete doesn't mean that it's in great condition.
I see. Well, and just to note to our viewers watching here, they're seeing a whole bunch of video here. This is a compilation of video from the story. So really important to watch Larry's story and get a full picture, a full scope of exactly all of what he's talking about here in this story. And there will be a link to Larry's full story in the body of the article here. And also just a reminder for our viewers as well, if you want to check out all of Larry's stories, krqe.com/news. facebook.com/Larry-Barker. You can check out all of Larry's stories on there, including this one. And Larry, you do a great job in the story of contextualizing what amount to some amazing visuals here as well. And I wanted to ask you kind of the broad question about the upkeep, right? You mentioned that the state reviews all of these bridges, and obviously they really have an obligation to, because bridges are carrying people over them day to day, and so they do a good job of trying to keep up with all of these bridges. But I wanted to ask you broadly, what was maybe the sense you got from the state? Is this a losing battle in keeping up with all of these bridges? What is it like? Do they feel okay with where they're at?
Well, it's a necessity of life. I mean, it's just like any road. You have to maintain the bridges if you want to get across a river or an arroyo, or in New Mexico a canyon. It's a fact of life.
Right.
You have to maintain these bridges. They do deteriorate. With the average age of a bridge in New Mexico, 50 years, bridges do not last forever. They have to be maintained. Now, just to bring all of New Mexico's bridges up to fair condition, it's estimated it will cost an estimated $500 million.
Wow.
Now, the money's not there. I mean, New Mexico does not have $500 million to repair and replace all of the bridges that need work. So they do what they can. They keep them safe. If the bridge you're seeing that you just saw there, which was caved in, was destroyed by an unusual flood.
Yeah, I can rewind the video a little bit here so we can pause on that one.
You don't want that to happen. So that's where the state comes in. They've got an entire division just for bridges.
Yeah.
Now, the state is not responsible for every single bridge in the state. If a bridge is on a state road, it is state responsibility for repair and replacement. However, many bridges are on county roads. If a bridge is on a county road, it is the county's responsibility to repair and replace. We have a number of counties which are rural counties. They don't have a lot of funds, and many of their bridges are in dire need of repair and replacement. That money has to come from the county, not the state.
Yeah.
So with New Mexico being such a rural state, we have quite a few county bridges, like this one right here.
Right.
That the bridge has outlived its usefulness years ago.
Right.
But all they can do is keep it open. This is partially closed, and it's got a load limit on it.
Yeah.
And the only reason it's still open for use is because it is on a rural county road, and there are load limits, and there's not a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of traffic on this bridge, it would have been closed years ago.
I wanted to ask you about, one of the things I think that becomes evident in this story is that New Mexico has, you can really see in the video you use here in this story, that there are all different eras of bridges from New Mexico's time entering statehood all the way up until now. There's modern bridges that we see that need work. There's also some of the timber bridges that are just sort of asphalt laid over timber. And then there are also these Vietnam era bridges, these kind of temporary bridges almost, or what were meant to be temporary initially, throughout McKinley County, mostly from the story that you put out there. And I guess I wanted to ask you, with that in mind, you going out there and seeing some of these places in person, What was your feeling? Were you shocked? Was it interesting to see? I mean, what was it like being out there and seeing some of these bridges in person?
Boy, that was a real eye opener for me. I had no idea in McKinley County they've got almost 4 dozen bridges. Practically most of the bridges in McKinley County are Vietnam era military surplus bridges that they got after the Vietnam War. These bridges were disassembled, shipped back to the U.S., and then sold or given away to government entities as military surplus. Back in the 70s, that's all McKinley County could afford.
Yeah.
So they installed these, like this one you're looking at right now. This is a military surplus bridge that came from, it was used by the Marine Corps in Vietnam to move troops and equipment through the jungle.
Yeah.
McKinley County, this bridge right here, which is just outside Gallup, was installed, I think, in the mid 70s. It's a temporary structure. It was only intended for temporary military use, but it's been over the Rio Puerco in McKinley County for almost 50 years.
Wow.
Today, it does not meet any current bridge safety standards. The bridge is safe to cross, but it does have load limits. Regular-sized school buses do not cross this bridge. They cannot cross this bridge, nor can emergency equipment like fire engines, even an ambulance would have a hard time crossing this bridge.
Yeah.
So why are they still there? These are on county roads. McKinley County is responsible for it. Just to replace one bridge in McKinley County will cost an estimated $1 to $3 million.
Wow. And what's their plan for doing that? I understand, we talked about this a little bit before we had this conversation recording here, but what is the McKinley County plan for these bridges? It sounds like they want to do something.
Their plan is one bridge a year.
Okay.
Last year, they replaced a very large old structure in McKinley County. It cost several million dollars, but their goal is to replace one bridge a year. Of course, with almost 4 dozen bridges, you're talking, 48 years? So by the time they replace all the bridges, it will be time to start looking at replacing them again.
Wow.
It's really it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
In McKinley County, it's pretty interesting. Many of these bridges are near or on the Navajo Reservation. They're in rugged country. And this bridge right here is called over Superman Canyon in McKinley County. And regular-sized school buses cannot cross this bridge that you're looking at right here.
Yeah.
So parents would drive or have the kids walk across the bridge, and then the school bus would pick them up on the other side.
Wow.
McKinley County has also gotten a special appropriation from the legislature to buy some smaller size, special sized school buses so that kids can get to school by crossing these bridges.
Pretty amazing. Well, and Larry, one of the big questions I think that's out there, and you do talk a little bit about at the end of your story, the infrastructure money from the federal government. We all know that there's going to be a lot more money for road and bridge projects in the United States over these next several years. Where does that money come into play? It sounds like it will help, but it's certainly not enough to address the entirety of the problem you had mentioned. I think it was $500 million,
doesn't have the
right?
resources and even the infrastructure funding isn't going to repair or replace all of the New Mexico bridges, but it is a big deal.
Yeah.
It is going to make a big difference in New Mexico with several $1 million every year, which is earmarked just for bridge repair and replacement. It is a big deal, and for the next several years, that money is going to go a long way to bringing New Mexico bridges into at least fair condition.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out to our viewers, this is a cool idea that you helped with executing here with as well. Curtis Segarra, I know, who's been a frequent guest here in the KRQE Digital Studio. He helped put this map together, and I want to put it on screen here for you to see as soon as I get the right button here. Here we go. And this is a map that outlines, again, kind of some of the worst of the worst, if you will, right, in New Mexico. And there's a photo for each one of these, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you're hovering over with your mouse. This is embedded in Larry's story. This map is, you hover over with your mouse, you can see a photo of each one of these bridges. And then, of course, the categories up top in the top right corner, you see critical and poor. The orange ones are in poor condition. The red ones are there in critical. And so this is pretty amazing. A lot of these photos, it sounds like, you and then the investigative team went out and got video of a lot of these, but the state also has a lot of photos of these as well, right, Larry?
Every bridge in New Mexico is documented with extensive photographic evidence by the Department of Transportation. They were very helpful, very courteous, and supplied us with a lot of the images that you see here on the list here.
Yeah.
This is really a cool interactive map. I really encourage everybody to take a few minutes, pull up the story on the KRQE website, and take a look at this map. And it's really interesting. It's a great resource if you want to just kind of get an idea of some of the bridges here in New Mexico. It's going to be an eye-opener.
Yeah, and there's a great way as well. You can take a look at the photos here as well that are in some of these bridges. So it goes to, I think the one of the big takeaways I have from looking at this map is that it just goes to show you how truly massive New Mexico is, the fifth largest state in the U.S. in terms of land mass. And there are people that live in all corners of the state and rely on bridges to get them across some of that rugged terrain that you guys saw firsthand out there, Larry.
Sure. And, bridge is not something that people really think about.
Yeah.
You drive over them, but you don't think about it. And you don't see what's underneath the roadway.
Yeah.
And that's where usually where you're going to find broken timbers or concrete that's falling away. That's where the bridge inspectors spend most of their time, is underneath the bridge.
Yeah.
So the motoring public doesn't see that, and they don't realize that how complicated and complex a deal it is to not only build a bridge but keep it in safe condition.
Yeah. Well, Larry, thank you for putting this story together and highlighting what is certainly a big issue and a vast issue if you consider all corners of the state as well where these are at. If people have questions or comments for you, maybe a story idea, maybe they want you to check out a bridge or something in their area, how can they reach you, Larry?
They can always contact us through the KRQE website, and that's probably the best way to send us story ideas. We always love to hear from the viewers. Their eyes and ears are out there in the state, and we love to hear from anybody who's got a tip.
Yes.
Send us a note.
Thank you, Larry. And of course, there's the website for you, krqe.com/news/Larry Barker, Larry-Barker. That's one way to get to Larry's stories, as well as there's a lot of navigation points on the site as well. Very much thank you for being here, Larry.
You bet, Chris. Thanks so much.